Today, we are going to use the distributive property to simplify expressions and also solve equations. In example A, we have 2 times the quantity x plus 10. 2 and x plus 10 are factors because they're being multiplied together. So what we can do to simplify this expression is distribute the 2 to the x term inside the parentheses, and then the 2 also gets distributed to the 10 inside the parentheses. When you distribute the number into the parentheses, it gets multiplied. So we are left with 2 times x, and then we're going to use the original operation inside the parentheses. So plus 2 times 10. And then we can multiply. 2 times x is 2x plus 2 times 10, which is 20. Next, we're going to do example B. We have m plus 3 times negative 4. m plus 3 and negative 4 are factors. They're being multiplied. So we are going to distribute negative 4 to 3 inside the parentheses and m inside the parentheses. So we are left with negative 4 times 3. I'm going to use our original operation from inside the parentheses plus negative 4 times m. Now we multiply. A negative times a positive is always a negative. So negative 4 times 3 is negative 12 plus negative 4 times m is negative 4m. Now we never want to leave an operation and a negative sign next to each other because we know when we're adding a negative number, we're actually just subtracting. So your final answer is negative 12 minus 4m. And our last example for this section is example C. This time we are distributing a negative number to the values inside the parentheses. So we have negative 3 times the quantity 2y plus 6. Our variable inside the parentheses also has a coefficient this time. So we are going to distribute our negative 3 to 2y and our negative 3 to our 6. So we have negative 3 times 2y. We're going to use our given operation, which is subtraction. So minus negative 3 times 6. Next step, let's multiply. Negative 3 times 2y is negative 6y minus negative 3 times 6, which is negative 18. And now, again, we have two operations next to each other. We have minus a negative. But we know that when we're subtracting a negative, we're actually adding. So our final answer is negative 6y plus 18. Now, let's talk about if these expressions were actually equations that we had to solve. Let's say example A was an equation. 2 times the quantity x plus 10 equals 20. We could distribute just like we did in example A. 2 gets distributed to x and also to the 10. So we're left with 2x plus 20 equals 20. Now we just have a two-step equation. Draw the line down your equal sign if you need it. Locate your variable term and isolate that variable term. So we would need to subtract 20 on both sides. We know that 20 minus 20 equals 0. Oh, and look at that, 20 minus 20, that also equals 0. we can bring down plus 2x. Now let's simplify before we move on to the next step. 2x plus 0 equals 0, so we just have 2x equals 0. Now we have to isolate the variable itself. 2 times x means we have to divide by 2 on both sides of the equation. We know that 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we are left with x equals 0 divided by 2 is 0, so x equals 0. There is another way we could solve this equation. Since both 2 and x plus 10 are factors, these two things are being multiplied. That means we can get rid of that 2 and isolate x plus 10. So let's see what happens when we do that. I want to get rid of the 2, so I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides of the equation. What happens when I divide by 2 on the left side of the equation? Well, we know 2 divided by 2 equals 1, so we're left with 1 times the quantity x plus 10, and that's equal to 20 divided by 2, which is 10. Times a number is that number, so if we were to distribute 1 to the quantity x plus 10, it would still equal x plus 10. So I'm just going to rewrite this as x plus 10 equals 10. Now, you have a one-step equation using subtraction. Isolate that variable, get x by itself. Now all we're going to do is subtract 10 from both sides of the equation, and then we get x equals 0. Now you are going to solve these two checkpoint problems and figure out which method of solving two-step equations using the distributive property works best for you.